to lead us off will be Commissioner Mike Aresco. Mike, if you just get your thoughts on the upcoming matchup with Memphis and Cincinnati, and your thoughts on the league in general as we head into the game, please.
Thank you, Chuck. First of all, I want to congratulate Cincinnati and Memphis on winning their divisions and playing in our championship game, which, again, will be on ABC for the 5th straight year, and this is absolutely terrific exposure for the conference. This has been a great year for the league. It's one of the deepest we've ever seen our conference. We obviously have an 11-1 team in Memphis. We have two 10-2 teams, Cincinnati and SMU. We have a 9-2 team in Navy that could be 10-2. They play Army down the road. Obviously, our West Division has been one of the strongest in all of college football. UCF in the East is 9-3 and has lost 3 games by a grand total of 7 points. Temple is 8-4. USF, which struggled this year, beat BYU, incidentally, which defeated Boise, as you know. So again, as I said, this is the strongest top to bottom we've ever been. I think many, if not all of you, have seen some of my recent comments. I feel very strongly about them. The double standard that exists right now with respect to the CFP committee and even with the polls, although they've been a little fairer to us. And the concern I have is that our conference doesn't get the respect it deserves. This year, in the computer rankings, we have been even or ahead of the ACC at times, the Pac-10 at times, or Pac-12, at times. Right now, we're literally almost even. The lower numbers are better. The ACC is 56.5 in the computer rankings. These are the 6 computer polls that were once used for the BCS, Sagarin, and Anderson, Hester, Colley. They're all well respected, and people look at them very carefully. We are at 57.8. We're right there. We're 16 points ahead of the Mountain West, and we're 20, almost 23 points ahead of the Sun Belt, and that's been pretty much the case all year. So in terms of the computer polls, our conference is obviously very strong. Our strength of schedule, and this is very interesting because this is a metric that is used by the college football playoff. It's the Sports Source metric, and basically our strength of schedule, the lower number here is also better. Memphis is at 57, Cincinnati is at 45. Again, low number is better. Navy 54, SMU 56. Our highest of our top teams is UCF at 90. In the meantime, Boise is at 95 and Appalachian State 106. So compare that to our top teams, 57, 45, 54, 56, and here we have Boise at 95 and Appalachian State at 106, and that strength of schedule metric is well respected, and it's consulted by the committee. We are, and this is an eye-popping number, we are 27-1 against all teams from the non-power conferences, and that includes Army and BYU as well as the G5. And the G5 were 14-1 against a group of 5 teams. The only loss being the Temple loss up at Buffalo, which is a very good team. We played a brutal, P5 schedule. We played, at Ohio State. We played at Auburn. We played at Oklahoma. We played Wisconsin. We played at Notre Dame. We played Oklahoma State. We played at Michigan State. The list goes on and on. We've played a really, really challenging non-conference schedule, and we've also won some key non-conference games. SMU won at TCU, not an easy thing to do. And as I've said, they did it in regulation, didn't need overtime. The other thing that concerns me is, again, I think that SMU at 10-2, and I think Navy is ranked, but SMU should be ranked. I think a 9-3 UCF deserve to be ranked. I ask myself, do these results mean anything? You can compare some things that I think are significant, and one is you have Baylor in the mix for a playoff spot. Now, if you compare Memphis's resume to Baylor's non-conference schedule, and this is not to knock Baylor. Matt Rule's done a terrific job there, but let's just look at the facts, and that's what I've been saying for the last 3 weeks. Let's just look at the facts. Baylor's non-conference schedule was Stephen F. Austin 3-9, UTSA 4-8, Rice 3-9. whereas Memphis played Ole Miss, which is played in the toughest division in college football and played very representatively all season. In addition, they played at Louisiana Monroe, a team that took Florida State to overtime. Their only loss was on the road at Temple. Obviously, Baylor lost to a good Oklahoma team, but at home. And that resume, again, some of the teams they played, 4-8, 3-9, 5-7, another 5-7 team. The resumes are very, very comparable. But in the meantime, Baylor sits, high up in the rankings, looking for a spot in the playoff. And here's Memphis, down in the, where they've been all season in the 18 range. And now they're 16 in the latest AP poll, and Baylor's up at 8. Well, tell me why that's fair, and why why the points I'm making are not valid. So again, that's the kind of thing I want to continue to hammer away at, and we'll continue to play these challenging non-conference schedules. No matter, even though we play the cream of the crop, as you know, but we also play a lot of teams that are just a shade below. Obviously, Washington State, Indiana, Pittsburgh, Illinois, Oklahoma State all present, good tests. Stanford this year, and UCLA was beaten by Cincinnati. So anyway, those are the kinds of things that I think we should be talking about, and I think our league is, again, it's the strongest it's ever been. I'm very proud of them. Obviously to have all these teams at records 11-1, 10-2, 10-2, 9-2, 9-3, 8-4, our top teams. Our lower tier teams have played very competitively all season and have come close to making some big upsets, including Tulsa, which obviously came close to beating some of our best teams. Did beat Wyoming and did win out at San Diego State in a rout. That's a team that Boise struggled with well into the fourth quarter. So again, all of these things are things that ought to be cited. I'm certainly, Chuck, willing to take some questions. But in the meantime, I just want to congratulate our league for continuing to improve at all levels. Our recruiting, our attendance, again, the strength of schedules that we play, the results on the field, our tremendous roster of coaches. I'm just pleased and proud of what we've done again this year. And it's not the first year we've done this. This has been a continuing thing. In 2015, we had four teams in the top 25, I think 5 at various points during the season. We've had outstanding teams in 16, 17. We've had 5, top 10 victories. No G5 team has had a top 10 victory over the years. We've had 44 victories over the so-called P5 since 2000, I believe, 14. This has been, an outstanding conference over the years, and it's only going to get better down the road. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. We have time for a couple questions for Commissioner Aresco. If you would like to ask a question, hit *1 on your telephone keypad, and then the operator will introduce you. Go ahead with the first question, please.
And that will be from Evan Barnes with the Memphis Commercial Appeal.
My quick question, just to follow up what you said. So regarding where Memphis is ranked right now in the AP polls, do you believe that given their record, they should have been ranked a little bit higher? And is that a sign of what you said as far as the AAC not getting enough respect, as you think?
Yeah, I agree, Evan. I think they could be ranked higher. Again, there's some good teams ahead of them, but they're a very good team as well. And, they only have that one loss on the road against a really good Temple team. They have beaten a 9-0 undefeated team, SMU. They beat a 10-1 Cincinnati team last week, a terrific team. They, again, lost that one close game on the road. They played in one of the toughest divisions in college football. They beat an Ole Miss team and held them to 10 points. Held them to 0 points at halftime. That's a team that scored a lot of points against LSU. They have an excellent resume, and I think they could be ranked higher. Now, again, I understand some of the dynamics going on here, but I'm concerned that our teams tend to get stuck in that range. That's where Houston was when they were 10-0 back in 2015. They were stuck at 18. As you know, UCF took a long time to get up to number 12 when they were undefeated a few years ago, and they could have beaten anybody in the country. I think it's a question of, let's look at the resume. I just compared the resume to Baylor, and I don't know how the SMU doesn't come out looking pretty good in that comparison. I meant to say Memphis. I don't know if I said Memphis, but Memphis should have come out looking very well in that comparison.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Evan.
And moving next to Ronnie Woodward at the Greenville Daily Reflector.
Hey, Mike, obviously it seems like you're pretty confident, in your teams and these championship teams. I'm wondering, what is your confidence level like that the winner of Saturday's game will definitely get that Group of 5 spot, that New Year's Bowl spot?
Well, I've been arguing, obviously if Memphis wins, I think they're pretty much a lock based on the rankings right now. But I think if Cincinnati wins, they should go as well. I believe a 2-loss team from our conference should get the same respect and the same treatment that all these 2, 3, and 4-loss teams from the P5 get when they're compared to our teams. Why use a double standard? The only reason these 2 and 3-loss teams are ranked ahead of us is supposedly their strength of schedule. I don't buy it. I don't think USC should be ranked ahead of SMU. SMU wasn't even in the rankings, and they're 10-2. I don't think that, some of these other teams should be ranked ahead of our teams, 3 and 4-loss teams. But if you're going to use that standard, then clearly if we're the strongest conference, and you saw the strength of schedule, it's not even close. The computer rankings are not even close. The overall resume, here's an example. And again, not to knock any of these other teams, they're outstanding teams, but Boise, beats Marshall 14-7 on its home blue turf. Cincinnati goes to Marshall and wins 55-14, I believe, and it was 45-0 at one point when they probably called off things. We've got comparisons like that. Tulsa, which has struggled in our league but has played competitively, goes out and beats San Diego State 34-16, I believe, and Boise was losing in the fourth quarter out there. The same thing with BYU. USF, which is not one of our top teams this year, beat BYU, and BYU beat Boise. Now, Rob Mullins recently on the committee call said, well, Boise has one loss, and it's to a 7-5 BYU team. A 7-4 BYU team. I thought that analysis wasn't complete because I thought it tended to be, somewhat misleading because, first of all, BYU is now 7-5, and they've had their ups and downs. But they were 2-4 when they played Boise, and obviously they won, and they were 3-4. But that 7-4 record at the time, they then played UMass, Liberty, Idaho State, and Utah State, which they defeated 42-14, and Utah State's in the in the Mountain West. They had lost to Toledo. They lost to USF, our team. Washington 45-19, Utah 30-12. So my question would have been, why is that loss meaningful in any good way? And why are we talking about that? Let's talk about the fact that Memphis lost to an 8-4 Temple team on the road by 2 points, and that's their only loss this year. And SMU loses to to Memphis on the road in a nationally televised game by 6 points, and then loses to Navy by a touchdown on Senior Day, where Navy has not lost on Senior Day in 17 years, and that's a good 9-2 Navy team. So let's look at those kinds of results and those kinds of scores. I think they do mean something. Sometimes, you look at these rankings and you wonder if people are watching the games and comparing the scores and the outcomes. But I have great confidence in our teams. I think they've earned the right to be ranked, and sometimes they're not, and it's just something I have to keep fighting for. I wouldn't do it if they were 6-5 teams, or they were, and I'm not asking that they rank our 8-4 teams, although they've ranked 4-loss teams. But when you have a 10-2 team that isn't ranked, you have a 9-3 UCF, which has lost again 3 games by a grand total of 7 points, and all on the road, no home losses. I think that you've got to take those things into consideration.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Mike, thanks for giving everyone a few minutes this morning, and I know you'll see everyone in Memphis.
Well, my pleasure, Chuck. And again, I want to congratulate all our coaches for an outstanding season and all they do to obviously promote and strengthen the league. And again, even the teams that struggled this year were competitive every single week, and I'm proud of that. So again, thanks to everyone, and good luck on the call, and hope we have a great championship game on Saturday.
Thanks so much.